Hello everybody, and welcome to a brand new series on the channel, H-Bomb Movie Mayhem. Now, this is a title that I used to use in my written blogs for movies back in the day, so it's a blast from the past to talk about movies in the future. Because today, we're counting down, or going through rather, the top 20 movies coming out in 2018. Now, these are my preference, so you may have other ones. However, for me, these are the movies I'm most looking forward to over the coming 12 months. And to avoid any arguments of how this movie should be higher than this movie, or that movie shouldn't be rated as highly as you put it, they're going to be done in chronological order rather than best to worst, worst to best, however you want to look at it. So, we are going to start with the next movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the 18th film in the series, Black Panther. And a lot of people are really excited about this movie, myself included. With the current climate and the way things have been going with casting and whitewashing scandals, whether they're warranted or not, this is the first real huge comic book movie where 98% of the cast are black. And that's obvious because of where it's set in Wakanda, a fictional place in Africa, with the majority of the characters being black. I believe, going from the trailers and such like, the only non-black characters in the cast are Ulysses Claw and Martin Freeman's character, whose name escapes me, but I'm sure we'll come to it in a second. The rest of it, obviously, Black Panther was introduced in Civil War. MCU has done a great job from the very first film of introducing elements that will make something in the future. And the big thing with Black Panther is the next movie is Infinity War, or the first part 1. Part 2, they can't say the name because it will spoil what happens in Infinity War. So it's Infinity War is the next one, and we're still missing the Soul Gem, which most people think is actually in Wakanda. So while there's the internal story we've seen from the trailer, which we'll link to any trailers that are available in the description below, from what we've seen in the trailer, it's definitely going to be a power struggle in Wakanda, but you have to imagine the Soul Gem, the Soul Stone, is going to come into it at some point because Thanos is obviously on his warpath to find them all, and that's the only one in the MCU that we haven't actually seen yet. We know where they are for the most part, and if you haven't seen the most recent one, Thor Ragnarok, then obviously I suggest you do, but that lets us know going into Black Panther where all the pieces are. So this is the last block before we get into Infinity War, which we'll talk about a bit down the line. So Black Panther is out on the 16th of February, and recommend, yeah, you should definitely give it a go. The next film that we have is a comedy called Game Night, which is out on the 23rd of February. Now, these dates, as far as I'm aware from researching this before doing the video, they are the UK release dates. So if you're watching this in the non-UK area, you may want to obviously check out your local area, your local listings, to find out when the movies are coming out for yourself. For the majority of the big ones, generally they have global releases. MCU have done a bit where they've released them prior to ourselves. The UK gets it first for some reason. I'm not complaining. So yeah, check out the dates for your local area if you're obviously keen on any of these movies. So Game Night stars Jason Bateman, Rachel McAdams, Jeffrey Wright, Kyle Chandler and Jesse Plemons. Having seen the trailer, it looks like it's going to be along the same type of humour as Horrible Bosses, which I genuinely thought was fantastic. So with regards to this, while we are still going on with that kind of tone, it looks like it's a fun version of crossing over that type of humour with the classic The Game movie with Michael Douglas, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I thought it was a great movie. And the trailer for this one has it where the characters appear to be, they've met up for game night and they think it's one of those murder mystery things where they're in on it and it's all an act, but it's not. And that's where the humour comes from. So that stands out for me as one of the highlights of February as well. Moving on, the next movie that we have is the first remake as we run down the list. And it is Death Wish. Now, a lot of people have been up in arms over this because of the type of character that the vigilante Paul Kersey is in the movie, and the sensibilities of when the original came out in the late 70s, or mid 70s actually, and the sensibilities that we have now. However, a lot of it is still pertinent, and the trailer is really, really good. Bruce Willis is at the right age now. He's been at the right age for a while to play this type of character, and obviously the original is fantastic. Death Wish 2 was good as well, but then it just gets really silly over the sequels. So people saying, "Oh, the remake will ruin the original." If anything, and nothing can ruin a movie that's already out. Even with George Lucas doing his special editions on the Star Wars, you can still watch the originals if that is your thing. So with this, if anything ruined the original, it's the shoddy sequels. This will not do anything to it. The trailer looks fantastic. It's been updated for the modern age because obviously technology's changed and such like. But it looks like it is going to be another down and dirty, gritty action film. And Bruce Willis is generally good value in those type of roles. On to the next movie, which we have is Tomb Raider. Now, we have had 2 Tomb Raider movies before starring Angelina Jolie. They were based mostly on the original run of video games, whereas this one, starring Alicia Vikander, and I hope I said her name correctly, also has Dominic West, Walton Goggins, who's always fantastic fun, Nick Frost, and Kristen Stewart-Thomas is also going to be in the movie. And it is based on the rebooted video game series where Lara is in this, she's a survivalist. She has to learn everything. And from the trailer, again, it'll be linked in the description below, it appears that she, Alicia Vikander, has embodied that role perfectly. And there were some set pieces from in the trailer that were in the original game, or the original reboot game. So this is one video game to movie translations. They don't really, they've got a very bad rap. Some of them are really bad, but some of them work, and some of them are just fun movies in their own right. The Resident Evil movies get a lot of stick, but they took the basic premise of the game series but made their own thing with it, which helped. Mortal Kombat for me is still the pinnacle of a good video game to movie translation. So it will be interesting to see whether this Tomb Raider, which is out on March 16th, holds up. So we'll have a look at that and we'll give that a gander. Following on from there, moving on again, we have another sequel to a blockbuster from a number of years ago. It was 2013 that the first one came out, and this is Pacific Rim Uprising, out on the 23rd of March. So far, all the movies have kept to the first quarter of the year. And Pacific Rim Uprising is obviously a sequel to Pacific Rim, which was, some people say it was a surprise hit. I personally didn't think it was a surprise. The premise was always going to sell itself, and the cast at the time, Charlie Hunnam was huge from Sons of Anarchy. There was a few other people in there. Ron Perlman was in there, and of course Idris Elba was fantastic. From what I understand and from the cast listing, none of those people are actually in the movie this time around. How they work around that, I don't know. Although some people are returning. Charlie Day, Vern Gorman, and Rinko Kikuchi are returning from the first movie, whereas John Boyega from the Star Wars new trilogy and Attack the Block That's obviously when I first saw him in. He's taken the lead role this time around as the son of Idris Elba's character, and it looks like it's going to obviously take on, and as all good sequels should do, take what made the first one work and expound on it. Looks like there is going to be some Jaeger on Jaeger violence as well. It's always going to be fun. So that is Pacific Rim Uprising. That's another one. Following on from that, and at the very end of March, is Ready Player One. Now, I was aware of the book, I haven't read the book. I know what the premise of the book is, and obviously the trailer does a good job of showing what the premise for Ready Player One is. Now, it's out on the 30th of March, as I said, and it looks like it's going to be one of those geek heaven, Easter egg heavy movies where there's a pop culture reference after pop culture reference, and you will watch it the first time to enjoy the story, and then you will watch it again and again to try and catch every little reference that's in that film. In the trailer alone, there's Street Fighter, DC Comics, Back to the Future, the A-Team, Akira, Speed Racers in there, Robocop's in there, Freddy Krueger, Chucky, Halloween. There's so many things just in the trailer alone that the concept of what could be in the movie it's mind-boggling how much they can get away with in this. And now, what will be interesting to see is how much they get away with from things that aren't part of Warner Brothers or the associate producing studios. What isn't part of their canon, what isn't part of their IPs. So it'll be interesting to see what we get in that. But the idea of it and the execution looks phenomenal. So Ready Player One is definitely a movie, 30th of March, that you should be getting in line to see. Next on the chronological list, we have the 20th of April, we have Cloverfield III, for lack of a better title. It's currently called the Untitled Cloverfield sequel. It was initially called God Particle, and it was written as a standalone script that was then adapted into a spec script for Cloverfield. So it was adapted into the Cloverfield world, which incidentally is what happened with Hellraiser a lot. 1, 2 and 3 of Hellraiser were proper Hellraiser stories written as such, and then 4 through 8 were scripts for other things where the ideas were fine, but the Hellraiser name thought we could sell it a bit more, so the Cenobites and such like were shoehorned in, and that's why they didn't really work as well. So with this one, when 10 Cloverfield Lane came out, that came from virtually nowhere. They were just told they're making this film, it's out in a couple of months, and everyone went crazy for it, and 10 Cloverfield Lane is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, or you haven't seen the original Cloverfield, watch them both. They are completely separate entities linked in the same universe, and the premise and how they're executed are totally different, but they're both fantastic films. So I have every faith that Cloverfield 3, whatever it ends up actually being called, and however disparate away from what we've seen before it is, will be a phenomenal movie, and how it links to them will also be a very interesting thing. From the cast, there's Daniel Bruhl, who was Zemo in Civil War, Elizabeth Debicki, Chris O'Dowd, and Zhang Zi. Now, Chris O'Dowd in the UK, we will know him mostly from the IT crowd, but he's a very capable actor out with the sitcom scenario. So that is one. It's on the list simply because it's a Cloverfield movie. That's the only reason it's on the list at this point. There has been no footage of it. Word is the original script for God Particle was thrown out completely, so it's a completely new script. But it has finished. The filming was finished a good while ago. If I have a look quickly on my notes, filming began on June 10th, 2016 and wrapped in September 2016. So the actual filming has been done for over a year. This makes me think that they've held it off for a couple of reasons, and one of the reasons is they were going to do it in IMAX, which they didn't. But any movie where the principal photography is finished that long ago and it still isn't released generally has a lot of post-production work to be done, so I'm expecting a lot of special effects in there to be done. After that is the big one. 4th of May. May the 4th, Star Wars Day. And this is Avengers Infinity War. It's the 19th movie, so close to 2 full decades. Well, it's 1 full decade of movies, close to 20 films. So it's the 19th in the MCU. And it's 10 years in the making. We've had 18 films to get to this point. As a studio, as characters, and as fans watching the film, we have earned the right for this film. This is a culmination of everything coming together, the separate strands all leading into this one place. Thanos has been an ever-present, pretty much from the beginning. Obviously he didn't appear until the end of the first Avengers movie, so we had a couple of films to get to that point. But the premise of Thanos has been there since the beginning. There's Thor, there's Loki. Loki's obviously been most associated with Thanos of the main characters so far. But this is a culmination of everything, and it is ridiculous when you think of how many characters are in this movie. And they all have to share screen time, and people thought, well, how are they going to juggle everyone in Civil War? Civil War is going to be like a school play compared to this. I mean, we've got this is me just reading down the character list here. We've got Iron Man, Thanos, Hulk, Thor, Loki, Captain America. We have Hawkeye, Star-Lord. We have Scarlet Witch, the Winter Soldier, Doctor Strange, Vision, Maria Hill, Nick Fury. We don't know if he's going to be in it or not. We imagine he will be. Wong from Doctor Strange, Gamora, Nebula, Groot, Drax, Rocket Raccoon, Mantis, Black Widow. The Collector's going to be in it. Falcon, Black Panther, AntMan, Okoye, War Machine, Shuri, M'Baku. And there's going to be, that's just the main ones. Then obviously we've got the Black Order from Thanos, who will be new villains as well. There is so much in this movie that talking about it, even watching the trailer, doesn't do it justice of how big this film is going to be. I genuinely think out of any film that's being released this year, or any film since, this is the one that will top Avatar. Now, Avatar, James Cameron owns the top 2 slots in the box office with Avatar and Titanic. This is the film that is going to knock James Cameron off. This is logged, obviously this is video, this is on YouTube. This is going to be the movie where we sit and go, that's the most money a film has ever taken. This is the highest grossing movie ever, and it's a comic book movie. That is going to be amazing. And then we have, the following year, we have the other Infinity War movie. What that's going to be about. I'm assuming with this one, it's going to be Thanos getting everything together, and the end of that movie is going to be, oh no, Thanos has got all the stones, we're done for. The following movie is actually going to be the war. So we'll see what's happening here. But Infinity War, May the 4th, normally Star Wars Day, it is Avengers Day. There will be, everyone will want to see this movie. Switching tack, from there we stick with the comic books, and it's another sequel, and it's Deadpool 2. Now, the first Deadpool, fantastic film, labour of love. You can tell it's a labour of love. Excuse me. You can tell it's a labour of love because it took so long for Ryan Reynolds to get the film off the ground. When he was cast as Wade Wilson in XMen Origins Wolverine, unfairly slated movie. It's a decent movie, and I genuinely believe if the main villain wasn't Deadpool, it wouldn't get half the crap it gets. But that's a story from another time. This is the Deadpool sequel. Not much is known about it. We know Colossus is coming back. We know Negasonic Teenage Warhead is coming back. We know Cable. Josh Brolin is playing Cable, who also plays Thanos in the MCU. So we know Cable's in it. Cable comes from the future, so there's going to be time travel of some description there. And that's pretty much all we know. But the main thing with Deadpool is it sold on its humour. It showed it on its R rating. It showed that an R rating could work. And this is what we're going to get. It's going to be another R-rated film. The interesting thing with this, and another movie I'm going to talk about down the line, is this is obviously made by Fox. And Disney, who make the MCU movies, who were Marvel, purchased Fox. They purchased Fox's TV and movie properties, not the sports or the news, but TV, studios, and the movie rights, which means they now have back, or have under their control, the rights to Deadpool, the XMen, Fantastic Four, as it relates to Marvel, and a few other IPs as well. So will this link to the MCU in any way at all? I don't think so. It may drop a hint. Obviously, Deadpool breaks the fourth wall. He may say some things anyway. But this is going to be the last Deadpool movie. Well, I say last, it's only the second, but it is the final Deadpool movie that will have no input from Marvel or Disney. So it is possible we're going to get everything folded together at some point. It would have been ideal for Civil War because there's so many characters missing from the movie version of Civil War just because Marvel couldn't use them, that they now have access to. So there was another comic book crossover, which was the Avengers vs. X-Men. This takeover by Disney of Fox and the properties lends itself perfectly to X-Men, Avengers vs. X-Men, with the Fantastic Four being in the middle, because they were neither Avengers nor X-Men. That could be an idea, but I'm babbling. It's just an exciting time as a comic book geek. So Deadpool 2 is out on the 18th of May, so it's like 2 weeks after Avengers. So the rush for Avengers will have died down. Deadpool 2 comes out, sweeps up the comic book nostalgia from that point. Again, no real idea of the plot. We know character-wise there's Deadpool, Vanessa, Weasel, Blind Al, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, Colossus, Domino's going to be in it this time, and Cable, who is the son of Cyclops. So that's where the time travel stuff comes in, and Black Tom Cassidy. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from there. But that is Deadpool. And moving on from sequels to prequel / sidequel stories, and we're jumping from the 18th of May to the following week, 25th of May, which is a new Star Wars movie. Not on May the 4th, because Avengers took that, but on May 25th, we have Solo. Solo, a Star Wars story. Now, these are ideas that when Disney took the Star Wars franchise, they have the main trilogy that they're doing, or the main saga, the third trilogy in the main saga, so we've had episode 8, 7 and 8. In between that, we had Rogue One. So Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And Rogue One is set between episode 3 and episode 4. And in episode 4, with the opening crawl, it references what happens in Rogue One, how we got the plans, or how the rebels got the plans for the Death Star. Rogue One shows that in action. Fantastic film. Really, really well put together. Great ending. The last scenes, phenomenal. So there's high hopes for this one. One of the main issues, obviously, it's the early days of Han Solo. So will there be any spot for the old Han Solo, Harrison Ford, to get a spot in, even reminisce back? Because obviously, spoiler, he died in episode 7, or did he? So to take over that role, something that he is Han Solo. So with regards to that, we have to wonder, will that actually happen? So we've got a young Lando Calrissian, and we have Aiden Ehrenreich, and I hope I pronounced that right, playing Han Solo. Woody Harrelson's in there, Emilia Clarke is in there, Donald Glover's in there playing a young Lando Calrissian. And there's a few other people. Paul Bettany gets a run in there as well. So he has 2 big movies out. He has Avengers and then this soon after. Not much really known about the plot. It's basically just on a young Han Solo, his adventures with Chewbacca, encounters with Lando Calrissian. So if you watch the original saga, the Falcon was Lando's, and Han gets it from Lando in some fashion. So this will fill that gap in as well. So that is a Star Wars story. So far, there's been a lot, apart from game night, there's been remakes, sequels, or adaptations, or prequel in the Han Solo case, and that continues with the next film, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, out on the 22nd of June 2018. Now I know 2018 is redundant because we're talking about this year, but it's in my head and I can't get rid of it. So, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, the 5th film in the main Jurassic Park canon. Now, Jurassic Park 1, phenomenal. Jurassic Park 2, I really enjoyed, even with the ending of a T-Rex in suburbia. No. Jurassic Park 3 had ideas above its station, pulled off some of them, didn't pull off the others. And then we got Jurassic World. Now, Jurassic World, for me, was the perfect move on. Because the first 3 films were about trying to get a park up and running and it never happened. We go to Jurassic World, the park's been open for years at this point, and people have apathy, as they do with anything. Oh, it's new, it's fantastic. Oh, we've seen it 100 times. Don't need to see it again. So in Jurassic World, they decided to genetically create their own dinosaur, and panic ensues. So Jurassic World takes it up from when that movie ends. The trailer has come out, and not going to lie to you, it was underwhelming for the most part. Chris Pratt's in it, doing his shtick, which, again, I enjoy, so I'll probably enjoy the movie for that. But the actual premise and the gist of it, it just kind of fell flat for me. If you haven't seen the trailer, there'll be a link below. Basically, there's a volcano on the island from Jurassic World. The park has been left abandoned, as you can imagine it, from the end of Jurassic World. So in this one, dinosaurs have just been left to their own devices, and they get word that there's a volcano going to explode and destroy the island. And if it destroys the island, it destroys all the dinosaurs. And they don't want that to happen, so they go and try and rescue the dinosaurs. But it looks like there's just a couple of the same beats from films we've seen before, and overall, I just wasn't feeling it. But hopefully, we'll be surprised. Going on from there, again, that's Jurassic World, so we're going from dinosaurs to ants, and specifically Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, Ant-Man, Paul Rudd was in Ant-Man, and it was, I would say it was a surprise package of the MCU. You could argue Iron Man was the surprise package of the MCU, simply because it was the first film and no one Iron Man, comic book, someone who follows comics like myself would be aware of Iron Man. General public perception, Iron Man was second, maybe in a third tier character. Obviously the Civil War story brought him to prominence through the comics, but for the mainstream, he wasn't Spider-Man, he wasn't Superman, he wasn't Batman. So with regards to that, not very well known, knocked it out of the park with the debut. But since it got running, I would say Ant-Man was the big surprise. Literally the little man who could. And it worked because they played it a lot for laughs. Michael Douglas was really good in it as Hank Pym. And Paul Rudd, I could watch Paul Rudd in anything. So I was happy with that. So obviously this is called Ant-Man and the Wasp. And it's out on the 6th of July, 2018. Now, because it is following on from Infinity War, there is an inkling that will obviously Ant-Man and the Wasp survive the first Infinity War. However, the film is set after Civil War, but before Infinity War. How they're going to work that, I don't know, but we've got Captain Marvel coming out down the line, and that's set in the 80s, so we can time jump. So, when we're watching this film, Infinity War hasn't happened yet. And I imagine they're doing that because the second Infinity War film is still to come out, and that will obviously be a direct continuation from the end of the first one. So this is getting them out there. It's getting Hope Van Dyne in there, who is going to be Wasp. And if you watch the end of Ant-Man, she was given the Wasp costume of her mother. So I imagine there'll be some updates on there, and we'll have both of them doing that type of thing. Not really much is known other than that. It's just a new mission. They have to get things done. So we'll see. But again, it's the MCU. This is the 20th film in the MCU. So on this list, there's 3 MCU movies in the first 7 months of the year. So that's a big deal. People think, oh, that's too many movies, but it's only 3 movies. Between that one and this one coming out, between Black Panther and now, there will be hundreds of movies released. This is 3 of them, so it's not too much. Now, this is Ant-Man, so that will take us out of the MCU for the rest of the year. Potentially. And I say potentially because a movie we're going to talk about a little bit down the line will also cover superheroes and possibly the MCU. But Ant-Man and the Wasp is out on 6th of July. Following on from that is a title where I'd heard the title before, have never read any of the manga, I know what it is, that's it, and it's Alita Battle Angel. And the trailer sold me on this, or the teaser trailer that we saw. Again, this is the one that's been accused of whitewashing. I don't see it. Again, the role of the main character, she's not human. So she can be whatever the director wants them to be. But the style in the trailer, and it's a James Cameron film. Well, it's produced by James Cameron, directed by Robert Rodriguez, so there's a hell of a combination straight away. And just the idea of it and everything else about it, Rosa Salazar is playing the main character. The effects on her face look phenomenal, gives it a real, we've never seen anything like this in live action before feel, which Robert Rodriguez and James Cameron are both known for innovation. So this comes out on, as I said, the 20th of July. Stars Rosa Salazar, Christoph Waltz, who's always great value, Jennifer Connelly, Ed Skrein, who was Ajax in the first Deadpool movie, and Jackie L. Haley, who, for me, is Rorschach / new Freddy Krueger. So that's your cast. The basic plot is that it's not really taking anything specifically from the stories. There's not really much been made about the plot, but Alita is basically, she's a cyborg and she's the protagonist of the piece. That's all you really need to know at this point. So watch the trailer, there's a link below, see what you think, be ready to watch that in July. After that is in a similar vein to Death Wish, which we spoke about earlier, and I don't think I said the release date for Death Wish, which is the 2nd of March. We have the Equalizer 2, and that is obviously by the name, the sequel to the Equalizer from 2014. Stars Denzel Washington as Robert McCall, aka the Equalizer. For someone of my age, who's 40, turning 41 in a couple of weeks, the Equalizer was a TV show starring Edward Woodward, and it was a brilliant show. It was obviously your story of the week type things, where Robert McCall equalised, he fixed things for you. Generally in a violent fashion, by shooting people. In the previous movie, Denzel Washington is Robert McCall, and this is him becoming that character. So, some bad things happen, he steps in, the action was fantastic, the characters were played really, really well, and in this film, obviously, at the end of the previous film, and apologies for if you haven't seen it, he places his ad in the paper for the first time, and this takes him into what the TV character was, which was, if you have a problem and no one else can help, and you don't know the number for the A-team, phone me. And that's where Robert McCall, the Equalizer, comes in. So this is going to be a follow-up to that. as long as it has the same basic situation, it's going to be him, violence, well shot, well told, I'm in. So that is the Equalizer 2 on the 3rd of August 2018. Following on again, we have another sequel. It is a very sequel heavy list. That I make no apologies for. A movie is a movie and a good movie is a good movie. Whether it's been told before, whether it's a remake, a sequel, a prequel, a sidequel, a spin-off, whatever it may be, if it's a good movie, it's a good movie. This, obviously we don't know if it's going to be a good movie, but it's Shane Black, who I've enjoyed every movie he's ever written and every movie he's ever directed. And he wrote the first film. This is actually Predator 2. He wrote the script for Predator 2. He wrote the script for Predator. And this is called The Predator. So it's the 4th movie in the actual Predator franchise. There's also Alien vs Predator 1 and 2. But this is the 4th movie, just straight Predator film. It takes place after Predator 2. So Predator 1 and Predator 2 happened. These have happened already. This is before Predators, so it's going to be before, obviously, all that we were taken to the Predator training world. This is going to be set on Earth. The poster, which you can see here over my right shoulder, is just a phenomenal piece of artwork, lightning flashing into the shape of the Predator mask, which works as well, because obviously the electricity cloaks around him when he's cloaking and decloaking. It's just a really, really striking image. And I have every faith that this version of the film is going to knock it out of the park. Jake Busey is going to be in the movie, which is going to be interesting because he's the son of his dad, obviously, but his character is the son of his dad's character from Predator 2. So that's carrying on that situation. They still know that the Predators exist. They're obviously still trying to hunt them, by the looks of things, from the fact that there's government agencies and such like. But it's basically going to be Predators coming down, doing what they do best, and humans doing what they do best, which is trying not to get killed. For me, the first Predator is still the pinnacle of the series. Shane Black is writing and directing this one. I have every faith that it will at least come close to the magic of the first film. Only time will tell, and that time will be the 3rd of August. Next, we're back in the comic book world and we're sticking with Marvel. It is not in the MCU. It is Sony attempting again to launch their own Marvel Universe. They did attempt to do it with The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the very end. I, for one, was very disappointed that the Sinister Six story they were going to do never got made. The idea for that was fantastic. And the teaser shot of the gentleman walking past what would have been Doc Ock's tentacles, Vulture's wings, those kind of things. Kraven's stuff was in there as well. Was really interesting. Where they could have went with that, we never know. But Sony, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 didn't make enough money. It made more than its budget. It was a hit by any stretch, but it didn't make as much money as they hoped it would make. So they decided to just go, okay, Marvel, and Marvel managed to get Spider-Man into the MCU, which means a lot of Spider-Man characters could be in the MCU, which included Vulture, because we had Spider-Man Homecoming, which was the first non-MCU MCU movie, if you follow my drift. So from here now, we've got Venom, and there's a lot of talk with this coming out. It's released on the 5th of October, so we're coming up for the Halloween season now. It's released on the 5th of October, and initially it was supposed to be completely separate from the MCU, like entirely separate. And there were some issues with that, because they weren't going to make any reference to Spider-Man, and you cannot have Venom without Spider-Man. There has to be some kind of history there. What they're doing is, and it is going to be loosely linked to the MCU, rumours are that Peter Parker Tom Holland, has been on set as Peter Parker, filming some scenes, most likely a cameo, and just enough to say, look, it is linked to this. That's it. But it looks like Eddie Brock is an anti-hero, so it looks like it's taken various things from a number of the comic book series where Venom moves to San Francisco, makes a pact, makes a truce with Spider-Man, moves off to San Francisco, because Venom was the protector of the innocents. He was just nasty with it. He wasn't a very subtle character. But even at his most evil, he wouldn't hurt innocents. So there was always some good there. So it wasn't just like a face turn, he was a wrestling turn. It was always there. So he made a pact with Spider-Man, moved to San Francisco, became an anti-hero. So that's where we believe that this is taking place. Now, what we're thinking is that it's going to lead to Carnage, which a lot of people are thinking of, and Michelle Williams has been cast as Anne Weying, who, if you follow the comics, is one of the She-Venoms. So there's some interest in there. They are going to do Venom properly, and for me, I didn't dislike Venom in Spider-Man 3. I did dislike that he didn't speak in the third person. He didn't speak in the plural. He said, I am Venom, rather than we are Venom. And it's a very small thing, but it's such an important part of the character, especially when we get to Carnage, who does say I, rather than we, and the very specific reason for that. So, with the the original Venom not speaking in that terms, if they ever did go down and do Carnage, it wouldn't mean anything. So this one, he's going to be we are Venom. So the symbiote and Brock are two separate entities, but together they are Venom. And it looks like they're going to go with all of the other offsprings from Venom from the comics as well. How that's going to work overall, I don't know, but we'll find out. Again, moving on, we're sticking obviously with the Halloween season, going through October, specifically with Halloween. Now, this is a new version again, because we had the original run of Halloween, John Carpenter through to Halloween 6. Then we had Halloween, The Return of Michael Myers, which was part of that group. Then we had the Rob Zombie reruns. Now, I really enjoyed the first Rob Zombie Halloween film. Thought it was faithful as a remake, but did enough of its own things, especially the first act, getting to the adult Michael Myers, which is something that was expanded on, that could have gone really wrong, but it didn't, and everyone involved did a really good job of telling that story, and then obviously taking its own way with Dr. Loomis and everything else from that point. The sequel was weird. Okay, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 was weird. I enjoyed a lot of it, I didn't enjoy some of it, but I will give him all the credit in the world for doing something different. He went his own way with it, and he lived and died by that. This is another follow-up in the Halloween movies. Now, it takes place, the original Halloween film happened in this chronology as well. The original Halloween film, John Carpenter's 78 original, happened. However, this movie is set 4 decades later in the present day with Laurie Strode, so it ignores Halloween H2O, it ignores Halloween Resurrecting, which obviously she dies at the beginning of that one because she just wanted out of the franchise. So from here, it is simply set after the first one. Halloween 2 didn't happen, Halloween 3, 4, none of that happened. There was simply Halloween, they shot Michael, he fell out the window, Loomis looked out the window, Michael was gone. And that's it, that's all that's happened. So 40 years later, it's back again. So how that's going to work and how it's going to go through, I don't know. But with it being directed by David Gordon Green, and the only name in the cast, Jamie Lee Curtis is obviously the main name, she's playing Laurie Strode again. Nick Castle is going to be Michael Myers. Judy Greer is going to be the daughter of Laurie. Now, that basically means that the Halloween, like 3 obviously is non-canon, but 4, 5 and 6 are non-canon as well now. And Will Patton's going to be in the movie in an unnamed role. Now, Will Patton's always good value. So that's Halloween. And I love my slasher films, I love my horror films. So one of my favourite franchises is the Friday the 13th franchise. I love Michael, Jason, Freddy, all those films. So anytime there's a new version of those characters put to screen, I'm in. I know a lot of people dislike the movies and say, oh, I can't replicate the original. It's not trying to replicate the original. These are new versions of these characters. So I'm happy with that, and I look forward to seeing this movie. Not on Halloween, although if it's out on the 19th, it might be in the cinema on Halloween, so I might make the special trip for that. Moving out of October into November, we're almost through the list, and I appreciate you sticking with me here. We're at number 18 of the 20 movies, and we have X-Men Dark Phoenix. This is the 4th movie in the prequel X-Men, or the young X-Men films. And it's going to be set in the 90s, which is great, really, because obviously we had X-Men First Class in the 60s, Days of Future Past in, obviously, future, but in the 70s. Then we had X-Men Apocalypse in the 80s, and now this is in the 90s, which has taken us to the, like for me, the pinnacle of X-Men, the X-Men animated series, which is in the 90s. So this is my X-Men at this point. And obviously the next decade from that is the 2000s, which takes us to the first X-Men film. So this is bringing us up to date, and whether it's serendipity or just luck, because as we mentioned earlier when we were speaking of Deadpool, Fox sold this to Disney, so the X-Men are now part of the MCU overall. So this is going to be the last X-Men movie done without being a part of the MCU. And again, there may be a link in Deadpool. There's more chance of there being a link to the MCU in this film. How they do that? Who knows? They're mutants. We've got reality warping. Specifically in the MCU, we've got Scarlet Witch. And if they go down Scarlet Witch's route of her powers manifesting like they did in the comics, then we can have anything and just say Scarlet Witch did it. So that's what we're going with. But this is now the Dark Phoenix is what it's called. X-Men Dark Phoenix. And of course, anyone who knows that's relating to the Phoenix saga. We had X-Men 3, X-Men The Last Stand, touched on it, but for some reason decided to use the Phoenix as a backdrop to another story, because the Phoenix is its own story. It's one of the best stories they've ever done in the comics. It's widely considered possibly the best X-Men story ever. Age of Apocalypse possibly pushing that there. Days of Future Past also. But yeah, this is the big one. So it's 1992, X-Men Apocalypse happened almost a decade ago, and the X-Men are national heroes going on increasingly risky missions. When a solar flare hits them during a rescue mission in space, Jean Grey loses her control of her abilities and unleashes the Phoenix. So this is tying more into the actual comic book version where they go to space. Now, what they're doing in space, we don't know, but it's a solar flare, they're in space. So they get hit by the solar flare, the Phoenix now becomes all-powerful. How they go from there, I don't know. I do know, though, they will have learned from their mistakes. They will have learned what went wrong with Dark Phoenix, with The Last Stand. They will know what the criticisms of that were. I've enjoyed all of the prequel stories for the X-Men, the First Class group. I'd see this being no different. And as a way of going out, oh dear, as a way of going out from the Fox saga, because they will be folded into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I have no doubt of that. Possibly not until after Infinity War, but they may juggle some stuff around. The Reality Stone and various other things obviously are going to be in play during Infinity War as well. So even if they don't go down the Scarlet Witch route, we'll still get that to go through as well. So one of the Infinity Stones could have the X-Men Prop 2s and the Fantastic Four and all the associated characters like Deadpool. So there's a number of possibilities, in canon possibilities as well, so it doesn't seem too out of there. But that's what we've got to look forward to, and that is X-Men The Dark Phoenix on the 2nd of November. Now the cast of characters are obviously Charles, Magneto, Mystique, Beast, Cyclops, Jean Grey. Now it's going to be interesting because Cyclops was only really introduced in the last one. Jean Grey, Storm, Nightcrawler still around, Quicksilver, who has stolen the show in the last 2 movies. And it says here as well that Jessica Chastain will be an alien with shape-shifting abilities that manipulates the Phoenix. Now that could be a number of different people. Olivia Munn is going to be back as Psylocke. Daniel Cudmore, who was Colossus, but obviously we've got a new Colossus in the Deadpool series. Daniel Cudmore's in the film, but he's not been named as his character. Now that could be interesting. And Lamar Johnson is going to be in there in an unknown role as well. So it's going to be interesting because they hinted at, in the first appearance of Quicksilver, they hinted that his dad was Magneto. In the second appearance with Quicksilver, he knows his dad is Magneto, but Magneto doesn't know the other way. And so it'll be interesting to see in this third film whether they actually acknowledge and whether Scarlet Witch makes an appearance in some fashion. We don't know, but that's out soon. So that, as I say, X-Men, 2nd of November. Second last, penultimate movie in the list is Mortal Engines. Now, I have no idea what this is about. I've only seen the trailer. I know it's based on a novel. That's all I know. It's directed by Christian Rivers. Fran Walsh and Peter Jackson are producing, and they also wrote the screenplay. So that in itself is obviously a good pedigree. Hugo Weaving is starring in the movie, along with Stephen Lang. Again, something I'm very interested in with those two characters. Those two actors, they are always good value for money. The basic plot is the world was destroyed in a cataclysmic event, so that is very generic. Civilization is adapted to a new way of living. Gigantic moving cities now roam the earth, chasing and devouring smaller traction towns for resources. A low-class citizen of the moving city of London, Tom Natsworthy, finds himself fighting for survival after he encounters the fugitive Hester Shaw. Opposites stuck together, they must forge an alliance that could change the future. Now, it seems very generic. Moving cities itself, and maybe not so much, but the basic plot seems generic. From the trailer, it looks amazing. It looks brutal, it looks dark, and I, for one, am looking forward to it. And rounding out the year, where it relates to the top 20 movies H-Bomb and yourself is looking forward to, we have Aquaman, the latest in the DC universe, and the only movie of the DC universe being released in 2018. Last year we had Justice League, which I thoroughly enjoyed. A lot of people were quite dismissive of the movie, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It had flaws. It really did have flaws. The villain was weak. He didn't seem much of a threat. Now, obviously, he can't be as much of a threat as Darkseid, but he didn't really prove much of a threat. Superman whipped him on his own, really. But it was good to see all these characters come together. While we haven't earned it like we did with the MCU, it was fun to see the Justice League on cinema coming together. 15 years ago, comic book, like myself, 25 then, but even going back further as a kid reading the comics and that, we were getting comic book movies, but for the most part they were terrible, and in every single incarnation they were not linked in any way to any other comic book movie. They might have alluded to characters, but they never featured these characters. So now that we live in a world where a comic book universe, 2, 3 really became the X-Men, but they're obviously being folded in now. 2 massive comic book worlds exist separately. the Marvel Cinematic Universe with so many characters and so many things coming together, and it's been going now for 10 years solid, churning out movie after movie, great film after great film, culminating in the Infinity War, which will bring an end to the original massive story that we had. So what will go after Infinity War 2, how they'll go from there, is anyone's guess. Because obviously you've got to think, who survives, who goes on. Captain America may survive, but will Steve Rogers? Iron Man may survive, but will there be someone else in the suit? We don't know. So we have earned all of that. So while DC are playing catch up and not doing as well as they probably could or should, we should be thankful that they're still going ahead. And the latest in that is Aquaman, which is out on the 21st of December, so it's just before Christmas, starring Jason Momoa, who looks like he was born to play this role. Amber Heard, who looks fantastic as Mera. Patrick Wilson and Willem Dafoe are also the main headliners in the film. Now, the plot, as such, is after Justice League, Arthur Curry goes back to Atlantis. Now, if you watch Justice League, you can see he doesn't go to Atlantis. He does live in the ocean, but he doesn't go to Atlantis. He doesn't go home. Now, he is there, and there's obviously a story bringing him back to Atlantis and what they're doing to prevent whatever disaster is going to befall them. Not much is known about the movie at this point, other than he goes back to Atlantis and there's a battle between surface dwellers and his own people. But will they have learned from what went wrong with Suicide Squad, which I enjoyed, but the action for the most part was very generic in Suicide Squad. That movie for me came alive when it was just the characters interacting rather than doing anything. Batman v Superman I really enjoyed, but again I can see what the flaws are. Having the creature be Doomsday, while it was interesting for them to take their own take on it, I see that as being a Doomsday, not the Doomsday. I think the Doomsday, the one who kills Superman, obviously this one did to a degree, but I don't think that's the Doomsday. I think they'll still do justice to that at some point. But rounding out the 20 films of 2018 that your man here is looking forward to, and I hope you're looking forward to them as well, is Aquaman on the 21st of December. So to run through them very quickly, that's Black Panther, Game Night, Death Wish, Tomb Raider, Pacific Rim Uprising, Ready Player One, Cloverfield 3, Avengers Infinity War, Deadpool 2, Solo, A Star Wars Story, Jurassic World, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Alita Battle Angel, Equalizer 2, The Predator, Venom, Halloween, XMen Dark Phoenix, Mortal Engines, and rounding it out, Aquaman. 20 films I think you should be in line to see at the cinema, with the honourable mentions at the end of the video. So thank you very much for taking the time to watch this. Thank you very much for listening to me go on for just under an hour, which is surprising for me. It doesn't feel like I've been talking for an hour. But thank you very much for listening to me for this hour. Thank you very much for taking the time. Thank you very much for liking the channel, subscribing to the channel, share the video, get as many people as you can interested in the channel. We will continue to do these. We will continue to bring you great content week after week. J-Rock will be with me next week when we do another Z-Box on the unboxing side of things. But for now, this is H-Bomb signing off. Movies are great. Thank you very much. Goodbye.